It is now 6 p.m. and time to call the City of Oak Harbor Planning Commission regular meeting, July 26, 2022, to order. Due to COVID-19, this will be both a physical meeting location and a virtual meeting per Washington Proclamation 20-28. Meeting may be viewed live via YouTube. To leave a public comment that will be made part of the meeting record, you may attend in person or please call and leave a message at 360-279-4512 no later than 5 p.m. the day prior. The first item on the agenda this evening is roll call, and let the record show that Commissioners Schott and Michoud are absent. The second item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the June 28, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion we approve the meeting minutes as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second the motion.
A second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It passes. The item 3, public comment. There is no one in the audience, and there has been no phone comments, so we will go on to the next item, which is our public meetings and hearings. The first item this evening is Critical Areas Ordinance amendments, and this will be a public hearing, and Dennis Lefevre will take us through this, and I think I will open it right now, the public hearing. Okay, Dennis?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. This is Dennis Lefevre, Senior Planner with Development Services. As we talked about last month, this is a fairly cut and dry code amendment that we're processing tonight. What we are looking at is making a couple of amendments to our municipal code to bring it in consistency with our Shoreline Master Program. I have a short presentation. And as you recall, I mentioned last month too that as part of the ingredients of our periodic review and update of our master program, we were required to look at any new information or changed circumstances that may have come about in the previous 8 years since the last adoption of the Shoreline Master Program. We did use a Department of Ecology grant to fund the services of a consultant firm, Coastal Geologic Services, to take a closer look at our policy and regulatory framework of our residential bluff conservancy designation. This is the area of our shoreline that's pretty much along Scenic Heights Street and has a pretty severe bluff that we wanted to make sure that we had good guidance in our regulations and policy guidance to make sure that that integrity of the bluff was maintained. The study came back with some high, moderate, and low priority recommendations, which we made most to the Shoreline Master Program, but we have not done that yet to the municipal code. So with tonight's review and ordinance proposal, we are looking at increasing the setback from the top of the bluff from the existing 25 feet to a proposed 50 feet. And that would affect basically new primary structures only. Due to the load of decks and accessory buildings, they may still be within 20 feet of the top of the bluff. And this setback is increased due to the analysis that our consultant did on sea level rise. He used a moderate sea level rise projection. As you know, there's dozens of projections out there, but he used one that he had used before with Island County and felt pretty sure that this was reflective of our situation as well. But again, as I mentioned, there's no impact to existing structures unless, of course, somebody wanted to rebuild on a destroyed structure, a vacant lot, basically. that's one piece of the amendment. The other piece is that we are looking at preventing the density transfer that we allow now in our code for lots that ownership includes the title lands. As we stand now, those title lands, the acreage that is encompassed in those tide lands, could be transferred to the upland developable portions of those lots and create a denser development. According to Jim Johannesson, who is Coastal Geologic Services person who worked with us, said that's a highly unusual situation and is not seen even with Island County or Jefferson County. So we thought that might be a prudent way to incorporate into our development regulations to not allow that transfer of density. That affects several different portions of our code, all which are included in the ordinance, which was part of your packet. Actually, there's two sample ordinances. The first, I think we had strike through and underline of all the proposed changes, and the second attachment was a clean ordinance with all of the changes incorporated. As I mentioned last month, again, our process is we look at a review process 5. We require a planning commission public hearing, which is tonight. We also had a review back on the 20th with the city council as part of their workshop. They had some good questions, but we didn't make any changes as a result of that. And of course, tonight we have your planning commission where we are seeking a recommendation to the city council where they would take this up at their September 6th meeting. So with that, that concludes staff's presentation. I do have a sample ordinance or a sample motion if you so choose to go that route. But I'd be happy to answer any questions or have any discussions you may have. Am I still here?
Sorry, Dennis. Excuse
Okay.
me. Building stairs to like on an 80 or 100-foot bank, is that still allowed, or how does that work as far as structures?
That is actually covered under our Shoreline Master Program, how those stairs could be developed and to what extent. We didn't, as part of this package, include any type of structure like stairways down to the beach.
Okay. So my understanding is that we possibly will not see a development on Scenic Heights in the future that would allow permitting for 11 homes on a double wide acre, et cetera, a wide lot. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, that could be one example that may have been affected by this ordinance had it been in effect at the time. There's other possibilities as far as vacant lots that the property owner may own the tidelands and also request to use this portion of the code to transfer that density. So I don't think it's an isolated situation, but that certainly would have had an effect on that development had this been in place at the time.
Thank you. Any other comments, Commissioner? Okay.
Mr. Lefevre, I wanted to ask, do you know, or is there plans to include in the plan a monitoring of that model that was used? Is there any possibility of adjusting the setbacks based on how close to that model sea level rise actually occurs in the next 5 or 10 years?
That's a good question. I don't know if there was any monitoring as part of that model. I would imagine there is, but certainly that would be prudent for us to do that throughout the course of the following years to see just how on case this projection would be. So yes, I would say there would be monitoring involved in that.
Thank you.
If not, then I will close the public hearing at this time. And then I would entertain it.
I move to recommend adoption of ordinance number 1959 to the City Council, amending OHMC Section 19.25, manufactured homes, parks, and subdivisions, 19.31, planned residential developments, and 20.12, general critical areas regulations to provide consistency with the city's adopted shoreline master program.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right, thank you, Commissioners.
The second item on the agenda this evening is height limit text amendments. This is also a public hearing. Staff will present proposed amendments to the height limits for structures deemed as culturally significant, artistic, or a sculpture in a public facilities district. And this will be brought to us by Principal Planner.
Thank you. Good evening. Kat Kamak, Principal Planner, here to present the height limit text amendment. I have a short presentation. I will share my screen and we can get that started.
Excuse me, Gak, I need to open the public hearing. I apologize. I should do that,
All
and then you can continue. The public hearing is open at this time. Gak?
Thank you. I will continue now. Let me go back to my share screen. All right. I hope you can see that. I know I have the slides to the right. We'll go with this format as long as you can read the text. I think we should be good. All right. So height limits, text amendment to consider height limits. So why do we want to consider a text amendment at this time? I think there's a need in the community. This need is expressed through the desire to have cultural and artistic structures located in public spaces. This is evident from the fact that we have the Arts Commission and we have several art pieces in our parks and our right-of-way. The subjective issues such as these need effective public engagement. As you're all aware, art and related structures do attract a lot of public input. The existing processes that are currently in our code are not necessarily designed to deal with structures like these. For example, if you think about cell towers, that technology evolved and therefore our code evolved with it. So we don't have any processes that can deal with these structures currently. So developing a consistent process for this will provide for predictability and equal opportunity. Where is this text amendment most appropriate in our code? So we have a chapter in our zoning ordinance called Limitation of Uses. This chapter deals with regulations related to other permitted uses such as height limits for roof structures and flagpoles. And therefore, this would be a good place to consider these cultural and artistic structures as well. To approach the text amendment, there are a couple of ways you can approach this. You can do the definition method, where you can just say, structures such as that are cultural, artistic, can be extended above the height limits, and you can just have a code that does that, and then you define cultural and artistic. A lot of our uses and so on are defined in that method. However, and this process will allow for a structure to enter the land use permit process straight away. And however, it can lead to unintentional consequences, and interpretations of what's cultural and artistic can change over time. So there's a different method, a determination method, which is what's recommended here, where the city council or the highest authority in Oak Harbor can make a determination if something is cultural or artistic. And that determination process can involve a lot of various forms of public input. And after that determination is made, it can go to a land use application process. The drawback of this method is a determination that something is cultural or artistic does not guarantee a conditional use permit because they have to meet locational criteria. So how is the city council decision made? How does the city council determine whether something is culturally or artistic? This could be done through various processes. It could be done through a resolution. When an arts commission commissions an art, they do it usually through a resolution, and that can signify the determination. Or you can have a professional services agreement where community groups or other interest groups can come forward and present a structure that can be then located in a public space. So these agreements can also signify the determination that something is either cultural or significant. And this process to determine it at the city council level can include a wide range of public input process, and that process can be determined by the city council at the time they're making that decision. The proposed language is proposing to take the whole extension of the height limits through the hearing examiner process. This is because height limits and structures can have impacts to surrounding properties, and you want to consider those specific impacts and mitigate for them. So the hearing examiner process may be the best and appropriate way. Therefore, the subjective matter is dealt with at the city council level. Now you're dealing with just the land use issues and the physical characteristics of the land and the surrounding properties. So the conditional use process will take it through the hearing examiner. It'll be a criteria-driven process. There'll be a public hearing, and there will be the ability to place conditions to mitigate for any impacts. So the proposed amendment is provided in your packet. There's a underlined version of it with red text. And it proposes to, as I mentioned, to gives the city council the ability to determine something as artistic or sculptural, and it can. And there are two restrictions in the proposed text amendment. One is the underlying zoning district, that this can be considered only for public facilities district, and it can be limited only to parks as defined in our code on what parks as in chapter 2.30040. So those are the two restrictions. So you can't, this does not consider structures, cultural or historic structures elsewhere. It just only in the public facilities district. So that's a limitation and limits it only to the parks. The proposed text amendment also includes the conditional use permit process through the hearing examiner. And here is the criteria that is recommended to be considered for that. That the structures are safe, that they're set back from the nearest property line. The 30 feet is picked from existing code language, so it's like a precedent that already has been set. You want to make sure that it does not materially impair the view of surrounding properties and that it does not increase any safety risks and so on. The hearing examiner also, this language also gives the hearing examiner the authority to place some reasonable conditions to mitigate for any impacts. So with that, open it up for questions. My recommendation to the commission, the commission has already opened the hearing. Recommend taking public comment, closing the public hearing. We can deliberate on any of the proposed amendments, questions and answers, and then we have a proposed motion. It's somewhat similar to what's in your packet. Either one of these, we'll move it to the city council for recommendation for approval. That's what's on the table today. So I will turn it back over to the commission for questions, comments.
Thank you, CAC. Commissioners, comments, questions? If not, I will close the public hearing and will entertain a motion.
I move to recommend the adoption of proposed text amendment to the Oak Harbor Municipal Code 19.28, limitations of uses, to add section 19.29.055 and 19.28.065.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Dennis. Or Dennis, CAC, excuse me. Also, the next item is a public meeting, also brought to us by Principal Planner CAC Kamak. It's the 2002 Comprehensive Plan Amendment, and this is a public meeting. CAC?
Yes, thank you again. I actually don't have any updates on the comp plan for this meeting. I was hoping to update the commission on the CIP and some of the projects that are moving ahead. Unfortunately, I don't have enough information currently. We have meetings later this week and next week on the capital improvements plan, and I will have more information for you probably at the September meeting. So this was a placeholder that we had just to touch base. If you have any questions or comments, we can take them, but from staff side, currently I don't have any updates for you at this time.
Thanks. I'm sure CAC will hear about that in the future for sure. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Commission Bylaws review brought to us by Director David Kuhl. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As you remember, last time we talked about the bylaws and we reviewed those together. We looked at every single one on the list and went through that in detail. What I'd like to do tonight is go through that again and have you provide input as to what you think should be updated and changed. If you recall in the attachment we have, Sarah and I have gone through and we've highlighted all the various areas that we think that could benefit from some changes. And as you know, we talked about getting this done by December because the City Council is going through all of its boards and commissions and asking all of them to update their bylaws. This bylaw, I think, was 1982 or something like that. So it's quite outdated. I think we got a good kick out of some of the items that were still in there, and it's a good reason for us to take a look at it and update it. So we have several pages here, and we're available for some review, and I leave it up to you to go through the list and let me know what you'd like to change.
Commissioners, do we have any comments or suggestions?
Thank you, Greg. Under item G, I don't remember us ever having to do anything with roads, widenings, or anything like that. In my tenure here, I just don't remember us ever coming forward and that even be an item. And I really think that could be struck.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. I think you are correct. That item G on page 1 deals with things that probably the City Council, particularly the Planning Commission, used to deal with. And now that you just use the hearing examiner for all of your detailed drawings like subdivisions and conditional use permits, it's quite likely that G could probably go away.
Any other suggestions?
Under the meetings of the commission, item 4, where it talks about the missing more than 3 consecutive meetings, and the mayor, if you're automatically removed from the commission. The 2 questions I had on that was, should it be the chairperson who can field those requests for leave of absence on behalf of the mayor? And the other part was, should it be automatic or should it be a vote based on certain things? We know that things come up and sometimes those might be difficult to undo, a medical emergency, for example.
Yes, thank you for that comment. We agree that 3 consecutive meetings is a reason for a question to be brought up, but to remove somebody automatically might be a little stringent. The way people miss meetings today is they'll contact Sarah, they'll contact me or the chairman and let people know that they're going to be missing for whatever reason. And perhaps when they get to 3 meetings, then maybe it'll be time to have a conversation with the individual as well as with the commission. But we do believe that an automatic removal is a little stringent. And then in this case, I'm not sure if the mayor is the one that would do that or if the chairman of the planning commission. Blaine's got his finger raised here.
I'll explain how it's handled by the council, and I recommend you do the similar thing. On the council's agenda, it has an opportunity for council to excuse absences. And so what the council does is when people let them know that they're gone, then the council has the option, the majority of council, to excuse the person. If they do excuse the absent, then it doesn't count as an unexcused absence. So what this is designed for is sometimes people abandon their position and they know they don't bother letting them know. Towns with cities with college students are really known for this. College students that have a class on civic and all of a sudden get elected, and then they don't bother showing up anymore, and then they don't even bother resigning, and then you've got this quorum notice. And so that's why the unexcused absences. But then we've done it for other committees too, but it takes a vote of the council to remove it. It allows the mayor the option of 3 unexcused absences to entertain, and then he goes to the council and asks for council approval. I believe we had a parks commissioner that wasn't showing up, that didn't resign, and we removed that individual using this provision here. So I would recommend you model it after the way the council is in your bylaws, and I would recommend, so you had 2 people absent, but you didn't determine whether they were excused or unexcused. And so I would recommend you, at the beginning of your council, your plan commission meeting, you would have a motion in there for excusing absence. So if one of them, or 2 of them, both of them let you know in advance and the majority wants to excuse them, then they don't count on that provision. But it's certainly a great provision to have if people abandon their position, and so you want that option to remove them. And certainly it's the mayor's option, and then it takes with the council members and with other committees, it takes the majority of the council to remove them from office.
Does that sound like something we would like to do?
I think it's wise to model it after the council's framework.
I know in the
I
past.
agree.
Oh, excuse me, Christie, go ahead.
No, I agree as well.
I know in the past we've had some issue in the distant past where people just stop showing up, and it does happen, and it's better to have that kind of a model to to alleviate that problem without having to get the mayor involved in removing the person from the commission. So if that's a good idea, I guess we'll all go with that then. Thank you, Blaine.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll come back next time with revised language to reflect that particular provision.
John?
I'm under membership and voting, number 3, where it talks about where such a conflict of interest, the member should identify it immediately and leave the room. You said, is this necessary? Maybe a thought on this is, if that person leaves the room, you may not have a quorum, so the meeting will, the conversation will cease right then and there. Maybe it should read something along the lines that the member should identify it immediately and refrain from participating in the discussion unless otherwise directed by the chairperson.
Yes, Blaine?
I can comment on this too with a lot of experience in civic. I would probably make, they remove themselves from the dais would probably be, sometimes the individual may have an item for the plan commission. That's less likely now, but I've seen it where, yeah, so if you had to remove the room, they can't even advocate for themselves. So you could have a case, and there's a few areas where we still have possibly have a conflict and would have to do it. The likelihood of conflict, since we have a hearing examiner, is very rare now.
Yeah.
So.
Quasi judicial is kind of out the door out the window, so to speak. So,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know.
we have it a little bit with the comprehensive plan changes that we have. I mean, there could be a sponsored plan commission change that was particular property owner is one of the commissioners, but that's about it. There's not much left.
Any other comments at this time for the reworking of our bylaws? Go ahead, Andy.
Or meetings, but I don't see anything. Is there a plan to codify that in the bylaws that moving forward, that will be a standard practice and how that will be carried out? Or at some point, do we plan to bring everybody back into the room?
Coming up with a hybrid process?
I would recommend you codify it. The council rules currently have 2 times that they can do it. I think council's probably going to liberate that and allow it on a regular basis on here. It's really up to you whether you want to restrict it or not. We're used to doing it now. So we kind of waived that rule, even though the resolution, the proclamation is expired now for COVID, for the mandatory. So we could go back to all in person, but it's really what the will of the plan commission wants to do. And I got asked from the council about that. I said, council regulates council, so I'm not going to get involved in, they determine whether so it's really the plan commission up to what you want to do. I don't have a problem, and we have staff coming in electronically on the plan commission level. If you're okay with allowing it, certainly you can do it. So it doesn't really address it in here. I'm trying to remember, David.
I don't think so.
On that, I mean, like I said, the council has the 2 a year that's probably outdated, and they'll probably liberate that and just allow that to continue as long as we continue in this format. But there's no mandatory anymore to have that electronic component. I mean, you can eliminate it and make all public comment and all attendance have to be in person if you want to. I think COVID's still happening and a lot of people are still getting it, so we're not out. So I'd recommend, even though the emergency proclamation has been lifted, to continue with it at least for the interim time.
So it doesn't have to necessarily be by policy. We can just continue on with it until we decide that we don't want to do it any longer.
Let's do that.
Mr. Chairman, I think what Blaine was leading to was to put something in your conducting the hearing section that would perhaps address hybrid meetings and give both staff and the public the flexibility to either be here in person or present from their offices. I know our staff really likes being able to present from their office because they have 3 different screens down there. and they're able to provide a better presentation than we have for facilities up here. So my recommendation is that we create something regarding a hybrid process in your rules and regulations. You can always take them out later if you decide it's not working, but we think that through COVID, it has shown that it works well, and we, as staff, would like to continue that.
And that would also include the public being able to call in or come in person also in that.
Of course, that's up to you how you'd like to do it, but that seems to be the direction it's gone, and it's been successful.
Any objections? That would be fine, David. right?
So we'll come up with some language for you for next time and plug that in section 2, conducting the hearing.
Thank you, Andy.
Just one comment on that. Do you want to leave some flexibility in there where the chairperson can insist on someone being here in person? Just to give the chairperson that flexibility to insist that someone actually shows up for the meeting here in person?
Sure, you can put whatever you want in there. Is that something that you think you need to see?
I don't know what that would be.
I think it's just what if.
Yeah, that's fine.
Maybe, I can't.
Comment withdrawn.
I have a quick comment, if it's okay.
Yeah, Christie, go ahead.
Okay, I just, as somebody who commutes, I mean, I live on Whidbey Island, but I commute. My commute has shortened a bit, but there was a time where it would have been really challenging, although I'm a homeowner and, active in the community. I guess seeing this hybrid option to me really speaks as an opportunity to make sure that we're creating opportunities to those individuals that are working off island. Just to not shut a door for somebody who has interest in participating in these things, and having that flexibility has been great for me personally. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on there. I think everybody understands the challenges of our commute. Sometimes, oftentimes my commute's 35 minutes, sometimes it's an hour and 15 minutes. And so having the option to join in a hybrid format has been really helpful to me. So thank you.
Thank you, Christie, for your input. That's one of the reasons, I suspect, and a very valid reason why we should continue with what we've been doing. As far as the chair requiring somebody to, I can't come up with an idea why we would need that, but I mean. I could see it if we were quasi-judicial, but we're not. Like, I would like to have people, proponents and whatever here in person, but we don't do that. I don't think it's necessary. David?
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate your comments. If you have any others, please let me know. And we'll go ahead and take your suggestion changes, draft language for next time, and bring it back to you for another consideration and possible approval.
Thank you, David. And the last item on the agenda this evening is the monthly department report brought to us by Development, David, the director of our developmental services. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought what I like to do every month is give you a little rundown on some of the stuff we're working on. I change it up from month to month, but generally we keep some of the format the same. The first category we talk about is the council action. This is a review of some of the council action of items that you have seen in the recent past. The first item on the list is the public hearing on text amendments for density standards, and that was Ordinance 1953. That was approved just recently by council. And that's a big deal in terms of helping us with affordable housing by allowing smaller lot sizes and smaller setbacks and more density. The second one is the public hearing on the Crosby Villa rezone on Crosby. That was ordinance 1955. That was approved. So that has moved forward and has gone to the hearing examiner. So that has also continued on. The council retreat on goals and prioritization. On July 20th, the council talked about that. They didn't actually finalize their goals and objectives yet, and I think they're coming back August 3rd to talk about that again. Nope. They're not.
16.
So it'll be the 16th.
Yeah, they kind of threw the system out. They had 43 goals from the retreat, and they're kind of decided to open it up again. So we'll work that through.
Yeah. So generally what you use your goals and objectives for is for the coming budget cycle, because you always tie your budget to your goals and objectives and your vision. So they're taking a little more time to work on that, which is fine. We're putting together the budget now. So under current planning, that's one that also changes from month to month. I've listed this as various stages of development. Crosby Villa site plan, and that's 4 buildings with up to 60 units on Crosby. That has been submitted for review. The Cedar Hill subdivision on Crosby, that's further out on Crosby, just towards the edge of the city. 28 lots. That one is going to the hearing examiner tomorrow. So that is moving forward quickly. And the Marion Woods installation of infrastructure. That's 46 lots up on Swantown, has been around here a long time. They are moving forward on doing the infrastructure, and they're hoping to submit a final plat fairly soon. The building area, we have 4 homes we talked about earlier on Scenic Heights, and so those are under construction. Under long-range planning, these are things you'll see. Long-range planning comes to you. The Cipa exemptions and threshold update, Dennis Lefevre will be coming back with that, and that's to change our thresholds for the Cipa decisions to make it a little more liberal and a little more flexible. And that's coming up. That's been done statewide. The active transportation plan, that's something we're working on internally, and we're developing a contract with a consultant to do that ATP fairly soon. Administratively, the new electronic permitting system, that's been very successful so far, and I think both the customers as well as the staff have gotten more comfortable with it all the time. We're finding huge efficiencies that have developed as a result of this, and we're actually making our process more lean. For instance, we used to have a process where to process a water heater permit, you had to attach a floor plan to the house. And that was an old system we had that was done by paper. And so that was put into our electronic system, and we decided there's no need for that floor plan. This is just a water heater review. Those are quickly done over the counter electronically. So we've gotten rid of a lot of these attachments that used to be required. And so we're gaining a lot more efficiencies. That's called a lean process. And we're going to continue with that. In the same theme, with the electronic permitting system, we're meeting with the state auditor's office, which is doing lean analysis for us as well. So we're working together to work together between planning and engineering and fire department and administration and finance to get all of us working on the same thing at the same time, getting more efficiencies with our new permitting system, and we're trying to make sure communication is improved through this whole process. And I can tell you, just in the last 6 months to a year, our communication has improved significantly between all the departments. So this auditor's office process was started by Blaine as well as Emma, our HR director. And I saw it and continued with it all along, and we're seeing a huge success with it. So we're going to have another meeting on sometime in October, to sit down and talk about it. So the Cedar Hill is apparently hearing on August 2nd, not tomorrow, sorry about that. So that's the Cedar Hill development out on Crosby. So we're available for any questions you might have. And one thing I also wanted to ask you was, we don't have any items for August. And so we're asking you to see if you want to meet in August or not. If there's no items, then we're recommending you just cancel that meeting.
Great suggestion. I don't want to come here if we don't have any items to discuss.
Well, great. Then we'll go ahead and cancel that meeting, and we'll see you in September.
Any other items, commissioners? If not, the meeting's adjourned.